There have been calls for weeks now for more action from Canada more quickly to address the refugee crisis engulfing Europe. Today, details from the immigration minister about how to improve this country's response. And that's just one of the developments to tell you about in this worsening situation. In Europe, asylum seekers are frustrated, bounced between countries that can't cope with the seemingly endless numbers. Frustration on the diplomatic front, too. The U.S. is again calling on Russia to help resolve the Syrian war. And here at home, there's frustration Canada isn't doing enough, spurring today's announcement. The CBC's Lorenda Redekop has the details.
Good afternoon. Bonjour tout le monde. Thank you very much for being here.
A much-anticipated announcement, the government's new plan to help bring more refugees to Canada sooner. The new goal, allow 10,000 Syrians within a year. Chris Alexander says it's a reasonable plan.
We did not make up this plan on the back of a napkin or pull it out of thin air. We looked carefully at our capacity. We looked carefully at the steps and procedures required to keep Canada and Canadians safe.
To do that, he says they'll be increasing the number of staff to help process refugees, both overseas and also here in Canada. This comes after criticism the government hasn't done enough to respond to the refugee crisis, and for requiring too much documentation from refugees who've crossed borders with almost nothing. Today, a switch.
They will no longer need a document confirming their status as UN Convention refugees. All of those who have left Syria or Iraq will be considered by our immigration officers doing this work as prima facie refugees. We will assume that they are refugees because they are outside of Syria and Iraq.
The Liberal Party jumped on that policy reversal.
Because there's really an issue in terms of communications and delays. So what Mr. Alexander has announced today is clearly an admission on the part of the Harper government that the refugee policy is a failure.
From the NDP, a call for much more.
We need to see not 10,000 a year from now. The NDP was very clear in this that we'd like to see 10,000 immediately. We can do this we think by Christmas.
Refugee supporters at an event in Toronto say this announcement is still far from enough.
They're not victories, they're nowhere close to what we want.
They compare this response to Germany's. It's taking in at least 800,000 refugees.
It is completely unacceptable that a country like Canada, which is involved in bombing these places, which forces people to move, is only taking 10,000.
The government says these changes will cost $25 million. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.